Can a single letter change everything? He had watched her hundreds of times on a flickering TV screen, paused scenes, rewound them, memorized every smile. He was certain they were meant to be together. She didn't know his name. To him, she wasn't just an actress. She was a sign from the universe. A promise, a soulmate. To her, he was just another fan. My name is Jacob, and this is Depths of Crime. This is the story of Rebecca Schaeffer and Robert Bardo. A story about obsession, delusion, and what happens when the line between fiction and reality finally snaps.
From the surface to the abyss, welcome to the Depths of Crime.
Rebecca Schaeffer grew up far from Hollywood. She was an only child, raised in Portland, Oregon. Her father was a respected psychologist. Her mother, a writer and teacher. Both were of Jewish heritage, but they never narrow-sightedly pressed strict religious rules onto their daughter. And yet, as a little girl, Rebecca had an unusual dream. While other girls imagined being princesses, pop stars, actresses, Rebecca wanted to be a rabbi. Even then, she was different. Independent, strong-willed, determined to go her own way. By high school, her plans had changed, less religious, but still ambitious. People started to notice her. She had big brown eyes, deep dimples, a warm smile, and a natural presence. People kept telling her,
"You should be a model. You belong in front of the camera."
At 15, she listened. She signed with a small modeling agency. Soon she posed for catalogs, local ads, low-budget campaigns. The owner adored her charisma and discipline. But Portland wasn't Paris. It wasn't Milan, London, Tokyo, or New York. At 16, she made a frightening decision. She wanted to move alone to New York City. Her parents hesitated, knowing how dark the modeling world could be. But in the end, they agreed. They trusted her. New York quickly taught her that talent wasn't enough. At 170 centimeters, she was too short for prestigious runway work. 5 centimeters decided her future. And then came the darker side. Photographers, agents, assistants hinting or demanding cooperation. Sexual favors for opportunities. She refused. Because she refused, jobs vanished. Calls stopped. Work dried up. She needed a new path. If she couldn't make it as a model, maybe she could become an actress. Height didn't matter there. But New York was overflowing with aspiring actresses. She landed a few small roles. Episodes in One Life to Live, a tiny role in Spielberg's Amazing Stories. It wasn't enough to pay bills. She tried modeling in Japan, but it didn't help. Back in New York, she quit modeling forever. She lived in a rundown room, attended acting school, worked a low-paying job. Bills piled up. Eventually, her landlord cut her power and phone. From the outside, she looked like she was failing. Inside, her story was about to change. One day, after another failed audition, she found a letter in her mailbox. Return address: Warner Brothers. Someone in LA saw her work and wanted her to audition. But she had no money for a flight. Desperate, she begged her agent for help. He lent her the money. The next day, she flew to California. Straight from the airport, she went to the casting. Exhausted but focused, and she got the role. The sitcom was My Sister Sam, centered on 2 very different sisters living together. Rebecca played Patty, lively, impulsive, warm-hearted. My Sister Sam premiered in 1986 and became a hit. Millions watched weekly. One of them was a teenager in Tucson, Arizona, Robert John Bardo, who watched the first episode and never returned from it. At 16, Robert had already lived through more violence than many do in a lifetime. His alcoholic father beat the family. His mother, struggling mentally, sometimes became violent too. His older brothers targeted him as well. Home was not safe. Despite good grades, something was breaking inside him. At 13, he began writing letters to teachers, first about hating himself, then darker ones about killing others, mentioning specific staff. At first seen as teen angst, they soon alarmed the school. He was evaluated. Bipolar disorder and severe emotional disturbance. Therapy was brief. His parents stopped it early. Child Services placed him in a children's home, then returned him with orders for treatment. It didn't help. It grew worse. A teacher described him as a ticking time bomb. But the system stopped paying attention. He drifted away from school, worked at a fast food restaurant, and retreated into TV, the only place he felt safe. And soon, obsession grew. At first, he obsessed over pop singers, sending desperate letters, begging for love. None replied. Then he fixated on peace activist Samantha Smith. After she died in a plane crash, he spiraled into grief. TV became his escape again. Then came My Sister Sam. Robert didn't fall in love with Rebecca. He fell in love with Patty, the character. He recorded every episode, watched them endlessly, collected articles, built a scrapbook shrine. Soon, he believed Rebecca was Patty. He wrote her a letter. At first, it was friendly, praising her acting, wishing her success. Then came more letters, slowly turning into declarations of love. Rebecca, still new to fame, tried answering fans to be kind and appreciative. Most actors avoided replying personally, but Rebecca felt guilty ignoring fans. She created a polite template, short, warm, but impersonal. With love, Rebecca was her usual sign-off, accompanied by small doodles she added for many young fans. One such letter reached Robert in 1987. She wrote that his message was one of the nicest she'd ever received. She ended it with love and a small heart. To Rebecca, it was kindness. To Robert, it was proof that she loved him back. He interpreted it as destiny. In his mind, they were already in a relationship, even though they had never met. When no more letters arrived, he convinced himself someone was keeping them apart. He had to see her in person. Robert traveled to the Warner Brothers studio with flowers and a teddy bear. Security stopped him. He begged and cried, insisting she loved him. The guard, feeling pity, drove him to a motel and explained the rules. Robert promised to go home, and he did. But soon he returned. This time, he brought a knife hidden in his bag. A different guard refused him entry again. Robert imagined Rebecca hating him if he hurt someone, and the thought scared him enough to walk away. For the moment, the danger passed. Meanwhile, My Sister Sam was canceled. Robert saw this as an opportunity. Maybe now she was easier to reach. He followed her career closely, reading every article. Rebecca, however, was struggling to break out of her girl next door image. She pursued different roles and landed a small part in Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, a satirical comedy with some suggestive scenes. For her, it was a chance to show range. For Robert, it became a trigger. When the film came to his local cinema, he sat in the front row. Her early scenes were brief, but he cherished each moment. Then came the 8-second scene implying she had slept with a man. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't graphic. But it shattered him. He saw betrayal, not acting. His fantasy collapsed. Anger replaced devotion. He concluded that she had become like other Hollywood women and decided that if he couldn't have her, no one else would. A deadly plan started forming. He researched how another actress, Teresa Saldana, had been attacked by a fan using her DMV address. Realizing this was possible, he contacted a detective agency pretending to be Rebecca's relative. They retrieved her address with minimal effort. Now armed with her home address, he needed a weapon. Since he couldn't legally buy one, he convinced his older brother to help under the pretense of joining a shooting range. Robert obtained a revolver, ammunition, and began preparing for his trip. He packed the gun, Rebecca's autographed photo, his scrapbook, and a copy of The Catcher in the Rye, emulating Lennon's killer. Then he bought a bus ticket to Los Angeles. He wasn't coming as a fan anymore. He was coming to punish her. On July 18, 1989, Rebecca waited for a courier delivering script pages for her Godfather Part 3 audition. The intercom rang. Assuming it was the courier, she went downstairs and found Robert standing there, holding her letter and photograph. She stayed polite but firm, thanking him, yet telling him not to visit her home again. He walked away, but later called his sister, hinting at violent thoughts. Then he loaded his gun in a restaurant bathroom and walked back to her building. When the intercom rang again, Rebecca believed it was finally the courier with her audition materials. She rushed downstairs. But when she opened the door, she saw Robert again, standing in the same spot as before. This time, she was irritated. She reminded him she had asked him not to return and that she was busy. She told him to say whatever he came to say quickly. He mumbled something, then reached into his bag. At first, it seemed he was pulling out more fan items. Instead, he drew the revolver. He grabbed her arm, pulled her closer, pressed the gun against her chest, and fired. Rebecca collapsed as the shot echoed through the hallway. As she lay dying, she whispered,
Why? Why?
Neighbors rushed into the corridor. One saw a dark-haired man in a yellow shirt running away with a plastic bag. Paramedics arrived quickly, but Rebecca was pronounced dead within 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Robert was already fleeing California. By the next day, he was back in Arizona. Believing his life was over, he wandered onto a busy interstate attempting to throw himself under cars. Police intercepted him. When officers approached, he didn't resist. He calmly confessed to killing an actress in Los Angeles. He guided police to items he discarded while running: his yellow shirt, an empty holster, and his copy of The Catcher in the Rye. The gun was never recovered. Back in California, neighbors identified Robert as the man they saw fleeing after the gunshot. In Tennessee, his sister told a local officer she feared her brother might have murdered an actress. With evidence mounting, Robert Bardo was charged with first-degree premeditated murder. The prosecution considered seeking the death penalty, but the defense structured their case around his mental illness and traumatic upbringing. During the 1991 trial, defense psychiatrists described his bipolar disorder, emotional instability, and delusions. They argued that years of abuse and neglected treatment had shaped him into a severely troubled young man. Prosecutors countered that although mentally ill, Robert understood his actions. They pointed out that he planned the murder, obtained a gun, deceived a detective, traveled across states, and attempted to avoid capture. To avoid the possibility of execution, his lawyers agreed to a deal: no jury, and prosecutors would drop the death penalty request. In return, the judge alone would determine the sentence. Robert addressed the court with an apology. He expressed remorse and blamed obsession for clouding his judgment. Some believed his words. Many didn't. The judge acknowledged his troubled past but emphasized the cold, deliberate nature of the crime. Robert was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. News of his conviction did little to ease the shock. Hollywood mourned not only Rebecca's death, but the terrifying ease with which a stalker had found her. Outrage led to rapid reforms. The LAPD created a threat management unit to handle stalking cases. California banned public access to DMV address records, preventing anyone from easily purchasing a celebrity's home address again. In 1994, the U.S. Congress passed the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, restricting access to personal data nationwide. California also introduced America's first anti-stalking laws, soon adopted by all 50 states. Rebecca's murder forced the public to confront a new kind of threat: the obsessive stranger who believes fantasy is real. Her death became the catalyst for modern laws to protect both celebrities and private citizens from stalking. Inside prison, Robert's life didn't become safer. In 2007, he was attacked by another inmate and stabbed multiple times with a makeshift knife. He was airlifted to a hospital in critical condition but ultimately survived. After recovering, he was returned to prison. Reports emerged that he spent much of his time drawing portraits of celebrities, often including Rebecca Schaeffer. Some of these drawings surfaced online, with proceeds directed to charity. The irony was bitter. Even in death, Rebecca could not entirely escape the man who had destroyed her life. Meanwhile, her legacy grew as an important reminder of how dangerous obsession can become when ignored. Rebecca never lived long enough to reach her full potential. She is remembered as the sweet, spirited younger sister from My Sister Sam, and as a rising actress on the verge of a breakthrough role that might have changed her career forever. We also remember her as the victim of a man who confused kindness with affection, who mistook a polite autograph and a doodled heart for a declaration of love. Her story remains a warning about the risks that accompany fame. Her death highlighted a troubling truth. Fame is not just glamour and opportunity. For some, it becomes a target. A simple gesture of gratitude, answering a fan letter, accidentally became the spark that fueled a deadly delusion. Rebecca wanted to be kind. She wanted to appreciate the people who supported her. She never imagined that a moment of warmth could place her in the path of someone who viewed fantasy as reality. Can a single letter change a life into a nightmare? In Rebecca's case, yes. One letter, received by the wrong person at the wrong time, planted the seed for an obsession that spiraled beyond control. But it wasn't just a letter. It was unchecked mental illness, years of violence at home, ignored warnings from teachers, a lack of legal tools to prevent stalking, and an era when private information was dangerously accessible. Each factor aligned with tragic precision. Without any one of them, the events of July 18, 1989 might never have happened. Her story shows how small cracks in the system can lead to devastating consequences. Rebecca's death reshaped laws that now protect countless people. Actors, musicians, politicians, and private citizens benefit from the changes sparked by her tragedy. The system finally recognized stalking as a serious, actionable threat. We tell her story not to glorify her killer, but to remember her. A talented young woman whose life was stolen just as it began to bloom. Her legacy is one of change, awareness, and the urgent need to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Her story teaches us how thin the line can be between admiration and obsession. How quickly a fan can become a threat. How essential it is to take warning signs seriously, long before they escalate into irreversible violence. Thank you for listening. This was the very first story on depths of crime, and it's only the beginning. There are countless more cases waiting beneath the surface. Darker, stranger, and more unsettling than you might imagine. By subscribing, you're joining me as we dive deeper into the shadows together, uncovering the hidden corners of true crime, the places where obsession, fear, and tragedy meet. So if you want to keep exploring those depths with me, hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and let me know in the comments what case you'd like to hear next. Thanks for watching, and welcome to the depths.